Right, okay, so hello and welcome to today's workshop on wellbeing during exams. So I'm an occupational therapist and I'm a disability officer with the Disability Service. I am 5'9", so quite tall with medium length dark brown hair, with blue eyes and a reasonably pale complexion as well, not helped with the terrible weather at the moment as well. I have included minimal imagery in today's workshop, but I will do my best to describe any images included, the majority of which are animated as well. So we've got a picture just to start with in that first slide there. We've got a picture of Trinity. We have a picture of the Globe statue outside of the Berkeley Library. We have two individuals graduating with the bell tower in the black background. And we have a final picture of students relaxing in what looks to be the cricket pitch there beside the pav as well, on a warm summer's day, unlike today's weather, unfortunately. So what I will do, and I'll be admitting a couple of students as they pop in as well. So what I am going to do is I'll be describing those images just for anyone who doesn't have a view of those images as the slides go on. But as I said, we've kept imagery to an absolute minimal today, but I will be describing any that are included in the presentation today as well. Right, so just for those of you who want to engage in the interactive element of the workshop, this is something new we've been adding to our webinars over the last couple of weeks, and we have come across a specific tool called Poll Everywhere. So you might be familiar with Kahoot. So Kahoot acts as a bit of a poll tool that you can use for a bit more interactiveness when it comes to webinars as well. Do have a look into that. If you want to copy that link into your browser, and that'll allow you to enter the surveys and the questions that I have inputted in for the webinar today as well. I'm just going to pop it into the chat here today as well, so you can get access to that. Just give me 2 seconds and I'll pop it in here now. There we go. You just want to pop that into your web browser as well. That should bring up the live survey and questionnaires. What we might do actually now is we'll have a quick look, and I'll just see if that's activated and that's being used. So I'm just going to pop into the survey, and if you just want to input your answers in there as well, so that should be live at the moment. Right, so I'll give you a couple of minutes to get set up with that anyways, and if you want to use that URL that I've passed into the chat group there as well, that'd be great. Okay, so moving on. So just the main aims for today's webinar. I'll be firstly discussing the importance of balance while continuing with online and in-person exams, both for those of you who are doing your exams from home and for those who are studying on campus as well for those exams. We'll go through the different challenges and disruption that this can have on a person's well-being, and we'll also learn about self-care and the different self-care strategies that you can engage in the run-up to exams. And finally, I'll just run through a couple of the different resources as well that will support the engagement of self-care during exams. Right, okay, so managing life during exams. So many of you at this point in the semester are likely to be juggling a couple of different demands and various different responsibilities as well. So I've spoken to many students over the last couple of weeks who have not only got exams to think about, but also different assignments that they might be completing in the run up to even January assignments and January exams as well. There's a lot of social get-togethers as well ahead of possible further restrictions. People, I think, are trying to make the most of their time coming up to the Christmas period and getting out there and socialising as much as possible, which is fair enough. We also have the financial demands as well coming up to a Christmas period, as we can imagine is probably one of the most expensive times of the year for many people as well. So there's a big financial demand that comes along with that. We have the family demands, again, during a very, very busy family time of the year. And then finally, we have the personal demands that come alongside exams as well, which we hope with looking after yourself, managing your well-being and managing your self-care tasks as well that we'll be focusing on today. So there's various different demands you will be juggling. So when looking at that role of a student in a regular day, we would describe that as a bit of a juggling act. And in the lead up to exams, this does not necessarily change. In fact, it probably adds to that juggling act. As most of the time, we're not just students, but we're also friends, we're family members, we're workers. And again, that doesn't change at a time when exams are being done. So we've got all those different demands to juggle at the same time, which can understandably be quite overwhelming for students during exam periods. And this can start to show a bit of an imbalance. We can see that the balance when it comes to occupations can go out the window, and achieving a routine or finding even time to rest up and relax in the evenings can be really, really difficult. We can even start to see a bit of a burnout before exams. And before they might have even started, and ideally we don't want to come to that kind of a situation. So that's what I'm going to talk through today, is how we can achieve that balance. So all of these different demands can take a bit of a toll on our mental and physical health. So looking after both our mental and physical health is absolutely essential in managing our student role and all the other various different roles that come alongside the exam period as well. So it's really, really essential to get on top of that balance to ensure that we can perform on the day. We can mentally and physically bring ourselves to an exam environment and bring the energy that is required. So this is something we can achieve through balance of occupations and ensuring that no single role or task over your day-to-day life will take over. Often the self-care element of a person's life is put to the bottom of the list of things to do, especially at this time during exams. All-nighters in the library and constant discussion with your classmates about exams, that can really prevent a bit of an escape from the academic world at times as well. So just before I move on to the next slide, I might actually pop back into that poll activity as well. And if you can start to input your answers to that survey, so I'll just activate that survey now as well. And we can have a look then after I discuss the next slide as to what your answers are in that. So I'll just activate that, just give me 2 seconds. If you just want to pop in there if you have any difficulties as well accessing those surveys. So it just activated that survey. So if you want to click onto the next question, that should bring up the survey, and that should bring up how does exam stress affect you? What helps you to manage exam stress at the moment as well? And then how do you think student services can help students at a time when exams are coming up? So I'm just going to admit another student in there. So what do we mean by self-care or engaging in self-care? There we go. So self-care refers to activities that allow you to take care of your physical and mental health and well-being. So the diagram just to the right there, you can see a list of all the different activities of self-care. So these are just very much examples of how we can engage in self-care, but just bear in mind that self-care looks very, very different from one person to the next. I was speaking to a couple of different students over the last couple of weeks who their idea of self-care might be going out for a quick walk on their lunch break, or it might be a case of reading a book before sleeping at night. So there's a couple of different ways in which you might engage in self-care. So as such, there isn't exactly a specific amount of time or frequency in which we should be engaging or allocating towards self-care. Instead, we should focus more so on the mental and physical signs that our body and our mind showcases, so as to understand when it is required or needed. So based then on our experiences of these signs, we can then learn how often we might need to engage in self-care and how to predict a time as well when self-care will be needed in the future. So examples I've listed there, they include rest and relaxation, sleep, exercise, we've got personal hygiene there, we've got eating, and we have got dressing as well. So these are all different examples of self-care. So why is self-care so important then when trying to achieve that level of balance? When integrated into our busy schedules, it maintains a positive well-being. It allows us to slow down and focus very much on ourselves. It helps us to revitalise, to re-energise when energy levels are depleted, so we can achieve positive outcomes in whatever role we must play during this time, particularly when exams are taking the priority at present as well. If not engaged in self-care, our ability to remain attentive, present, compassionate, or thoughtful is reduced, which can also have a big impact on your relationship with others, perhaps those who are currently living with you or your family or friends. And while I appreciate that mine may not be the focus for you at a time when you're completing your exams, it can have a big impact on you and how you tackle exams if you do not have the support of those loved ones there beside you as well. So it can have a big impact and a big effect on you. So how do we know that we aren't looking after ourselves or engaging in enough self-care? A couple of different signs in which we want to watch out for there. It might be finding it difficult to study for prolonged periods due to concentration issues. As I mentioned before, another sign that we are not engaging in enough self-care is becoming irritable with those you love as well. So that might be another sign you might not want to look out for. Low motivation and interest levels when engaging in previously enjoyable occupations. Increased levels of anxiety, so a couple of you mentioned in that poll there as well, and I'll go back to that poll in 2 minutes, but a couple of you mentioned increase in panic attacks and anxiety there as well. Low mood for prolonged periods of time especially, or experiencing mood swings coming up to the exams. Difficulty getting to sleep or remaining asleep, or engaging in good sleep hygiene, which again is absolutely essential in the run up to the exam to get into a good routine of sleep routine. Loss of appetite or a lack of routine with meal times. And then finally, just to the right, you'll see the physical signs then as well. So I mentioned a few physical signs already, but the ones that you can be considered signs and that you're not engaged in self-care as well will include fatigue, hair loss or hair becoming dull or limp, headache or migraines. We've got weight loss there, weight gain, and that's usually as a result of loss or increase in appetite, or change in routine of meals as well. And finally, then the gaunt appearance or pale skin, dark circles under the eyes. And as I mentioned there before, it might be normal for a pale complexion coming up to this time of year. If you consider this to be a bit abnormal for yourself coming up to the run up to exams, there's any changes in this in particular to watch out for those. And as I mentioned, these are just a few to mention. They're just a couple of different examples. But I might actually just use this as a time now actually just to pop back into that poll. So for those of you who might have joined a few minutes late as well, the poll link is just attached to the chat there. I'll just pop it into the chat there again, just in case anyone wants to find that. And if you just want to pop your answers into that poll then as well, we'll have a look back at the various different effects that you might experience as well coming up to the exams. Right. So we've got, so you mentioned there panic attacks or increase in anxiety before or during exams come up as 50% there, and imbalance in occupations as well. So self-care, productivity and leisure, they're the two main ones that have been highlighted. We have a couple of changes there. So now 67% as well, an imbalance in occupation and self-care, productivity and leisure. We have someone who was inputted there with regards to loss of sleep as 33% now as well. So we can see that changing now as we go along as well. So they'd be the biggest ones there as well. But as I mentioned in the survey, we have become irritable or moody, loss of appetite. And one option I suppose I didn't leave up there as well is all of the above. A lot of people might experience a wide range of different effects when it comes to exam stress as well. So the main three ones that we've identified are loss of sleep, panic attacks or increase in anxiety before or during exams, and imbalance in occupation, self-care, productivity and leisure. And they're all coming together at an equal level of 33% each. Right, so just popping back onto the slides. So just with regards to what you can do then to look after your health and well-being. How do we make sure that we're looking after our physical and mental health and well-being during a time of exams? So the first one to start with there will be food and drinks, and what we're eating and what we're drinking coming up to exams. I think it might be a good idea to just start analysing how you eat, what goes into your meal choice on a daily basis in the run up to exams. If you're busy, do you have a tendency to skip meals during the day and have a late night snack maybe instead? Or do you have time allocated to home cooking during the day, or do you choose to pick up processed or pre-cooked food as well? It might be a good idea to start thinking about creating a bit of a shopping list so that you don't get into a habit of collecting maybe processed food or food that might be high in sugar and caffeine as well, because they can all have a big impact as well in your energy levels coming up to exams. It might even be a good idea as well to start thinking of batch cooking maybe on the weekend coming up to exams, that you have plenty of time the evenings after study or after your exams to rest up and relax as well. And always have a bottle of water. I think that's the main thing as well. Always have a bottle of water by your side to make sure you're kept hydrated. Change your routine by eating and drinking well. It can have absolutely huge effects as well when it comes to fatigue levels. And you may also find that mood swings that might be associated with high sugar levels and high caffeine levels will likely lessen if you keep up with a good diet and good drinking plan. For those of you living at home as well, it might be a good idea just to seek help from a parent or family member to support you with cooking and cleaning tasks on the weeks maybe of exams and the weeks coming up to exams, just to give you plenty of time again to focus on either study during the day or exams during the day, and then wind down time at night as well for resting up. We have exercise there as well as another thing to help maintain good health and well-being. So ideally getting outside for 30 minutes a day, and even on the run up to exams, although this may not be priority, this is quite important for yourself as well. Even if it means going out for a run, a walk during quiet times of the day to help clear the head and escape any negative kind of thoughts that might be occurring in the lead up to exams. Or if weather is bad like it is today, although it seems to have cleared up a little bit now over the last couple of minutes, you could try something like online yoga or something along those lines as well, just to help clear your headspace in the lead up to exams. There's a load of different forms in which we can kind of engage in free exercise routines and resources as well to help you keep active while you're at home as well. Or we still have the sports centre as well that's open at the moment in Trinity. So even if you wanted to engage in a bit of a gym routine or something like that on the week during exams as well, that hopefully will have some helpful input for yourself. Having that regime then throughout the week can give your day structure before or after study, alongside the physical and obvious mental health effects and benefits of exercise as well. For some people, it actually helps to kickstart their mind before a day of study or wind down before bed, to help with the sleep as well. And then finally, moving on to sleep then on that note as well, while it can be quite difficult to manage this during the time of study, it is really important to get on top of a good sleep routine coming up to exams. Developing good habits and practicing good sleep hygiene is just really important when introducing routine into a person's life. Picking a regular time to go to bed and using an alarm if necessary to remind yourself of that time as well, and setting it again for a regular wake up time in the morning. Ideally, we're looking at 7 to 9 hours sleep per night, and try and refrain from napping if you can throughout the day as well. Although I appreciate you might be going through a couple of different exams as well, and you might be particularly wrecked after those exams, and you might have a tendency to nap maybe after that. But just bear in mind that might affect your sleep during the night time as well. So this is a very important time in your day, giving your mind and body time to charge and re-energize. It is my belief really in general that the sleep pretty much drives your activity all day, every day, and throughout the week as well. And that if you don't have a good routine at night, it often affects the morning routine as well. And if you don't have a good morning routine, that often affects the study routine then during the day as well. So it can have a really big knock-on effect if you don't get that good sleep routine going at night. Then for some of you who might have fatigue problems as well, and struggle with sleep, or have any kind of difficulty acquiring enough sleep, it's really important to pace yourself, number one. So we've got them coming up here there. So while it's the perfect time as well to work on managing your fatigue when energy levels need to be at their highest really for exam workload, it is also worth acknowledging that it takes a little bit of time, so you need to pace yourself for this one. It doesn't necessarily happen overnight, and it may require continuous effort just to find out what suits you best and what sleep levels, sleeping hours suit you best. So pace yourself for that one, and try your best throughout the week as well. Knowing your limits then as well, so don't push yourself to achieve too much in the time frame when energy levels are at their absolute highest. Often people who with say chronic fatigue syndrome, they get caught up in a bit of a cycle of rushing to get everything done in a short time frame before experiencing a bit of a crash. And that often exaggerates or intensifies the symptoms furthermore as well, leading to frustration and perhaps no motivation to re-engage in a productive work cycle again. So keeping a bit of a log, which keeps track of your energy levels, that might have a good outcome as well when it comes to keeping up with the particular tasks and activities and how much energy they require. And also the level of symptoms that you're experiencing in the moment will help you identify if you're in a position to complete the task then at that particular time. So try and reevaluate this after each task or activity. Anticipate difficulties there. I've gone one step ahead there, but if we look at the anticipating difficulties, just being realistic to yourself, not just with your energy levels throughout the day, but your sleep pattern, anticipating difficulty with motivation and concentration as well. It's very easy for us to give up after a bad day when goals haven't been met. So do try to create realistic goals, and break those goals then down to ensure that you are not met with frustration or failure at the end of the day. Schedule those breaks, and I'm moving on to the next one there now. So schedule breaks, rest and relaxation, and again try to avoid that rush and crash cycle. So pace out your day so that you can include plenty of time for breaks and practice good rest and relaxation strategies as well. Rest and relaxation, they'll be necessary to reduce the impact of symptoms experienced due to fatigue. So we'll go through a couple of those different strategies that you might use as well to help with rest and relaxation. Then moving on to finally setting up your environment as well. So set up your bedroom or your office space, or wherever that you hope to complete the task or activity, whether it's study or otherwise, so that every resource is required to complete that task is very close to hand, so that you don't require any further expenditure of energy that isn't absolutely necessary for the completion of any task. This tip is also quite useful for those who may be easily distracted or have a tendency to procrastinate too. So again, there's a couple of different matters that you might be dealing with there as well. Then moving on to rest and relaxation then. So why is this so important when it comes to achieving balance in your day-to-day life? to start with, really stress levels are understandably they're likely high at this moment as well. And I'll just pop back into the poll there as well to check on that, to see how your stress levels are at the moment as well. But naturally, they're going to be high coming up to the exam period. So now might be, I suppose now more than ever might be a time that you want to introduce rest and relaxation to your daily routine as well. And why? We might have a look now basically at the impacts of not engaging in rest and relaxation and the effects that they can have on your mind and body during exams as well. So impaired memory, when we relax, the flow of blood increases around our body, giving us more energy. When energy levels are low, our brain is incapable of retaining as much information, thus impairing our memory then at a time when it is absolutely necessary then coming up to the exams as well. That can also affect your poor concentration then, or your concentration levels. That can affect your productivity then when it comes to study sessions then in the lead up to exams. And alongside that then, the lowered stress threshold. If relaxation slows or heart rate and reduces our blood pressure and relieves tension, not engaging in rest and relaxation then can allow for a bit of a build-up of tension and stress levels. Not to mention then the snapiness and agitation then that can occur as a result of that. And as mentioned earlier, that can really have a big impact on those who are surrounding you during exam time as well. And it can be really important then to remain calm and collected during exams, to ensure that doesn't kind of come out, or that effect doesn't happen. Reduce sociability and optimism as well. So it is, so I suppose at that it's no wonder really that our desire to engage socially with our friends and our family is affected, and our ability to remain positive during this time as well, which again is absolutely necessary to try and remain calm and collected. Then the changes as well in vital signs and tissue repair. So rest and relaxation repairs your body. Our bodies repair themselves from daily wear and tear when we rest. So rest and relaxation is therefore a necessary part of our work cycle, and we must take advantage of this as much as possible to ensure that we are overall healthier, happier, and we're allowing our mind and our body that bit more time to just heal up and rest up. Although we might be sat at our desks when we're studying, our mind is constantly working to take in as much as possible as well. So make sure you do give it a break to be able to form when it is needed then during exams. So what kind of rest and relaxation techniques can you practice to ensure you are getting your daily dose of R&R, rest and relaxation? I suppose the good news is that there are loads of rest and relaxation strategies and alternative different applications that you can use then to start to implement this into your life. And even better, most of these are done actually quite well in the comfort of your own home as well, for those who sit in exams online. Number one would be deep breathing. Generally the 4-7-8 method is used to practice deep breathing. So that would be inhaling for 4 seconds, holding on to your breath for 7, and then exhaling for 8 seconds. Another one there would be mindfulness. So this is a practice of purposely bringing one's attention to experiences occurring in the present moment. So bringing the person back to the present. It helps us to focus on our attention as well as to observe our thoughts and feelings without judgment. A simple mindfulness practice would be to take a moment to identify 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can feel, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. Often people prefer guided mindfulness to start with, and there are plenty of different YouTube and Spotify playlists out there that can suit your preferences in terms of mindfulness, and even the voices in which you prefer when it comes to mindfulness as well. But this is something that you can do unaccompanied and without the guidance as well in an exam setting, for example. So if you were at the beginning of exam, you wanted to take 5 minutes just to practice a really quick mindfulness exercise, it might be the best thing to help calm any nerves. Progressive muscular relaxation, another good technique that you can use in an exam environment as well. So this method is a deep muscle. It's a method of deep muscle relaxation. So it's based on the idea that muscle tension is the body's kind of psychological response to anxiety provoking thoughts, and that muscle relaxation can help to block that anxiety. So that can be done by tensing and relaxing the muscle groups, and it's just a really simple practice that you can complete at any time and anywhere, and as I said, in an exam environment as well. Would be to just focus firstly on the toes, tensing and relaxing your toes, working your way then up to the calves and up to your stomach area, then up to your shoulders, your hands and your arms, and taking just a moment just to focus on each of those muscle groups one at a time, tensing and then relaxing your muscles. And again, you can find some guided forms of progressive muscle relaxation on the likes of YouTube as well, that'll help you take you through that process as well if you need some guidance. Guided meditation, so train yourself to gain attention and awareness and achieve a mentally clear and emotionally calm and stable state. So that is mainly achieved by focusing the mind on a particular object, thought or activity. So there are several different techniques that come under guided meditation, to include yogas. One is a form of guided meditation. And excuse me, I've already mentioned as well the mindfulness as well, and that is another form of guided meditation. I should also mention as well that just that little orange blob there to the right, that's actually the Headspace application that is widely used within the practice of guided meditation as well around the world. You'll often see it on YouTube actually as one of those advertisements that constantly pops up. So again, if that's something that you want to download, it is free of charge. And you can get that on most phones as well, Android or otherwise. It houses about 1,000, I think, different recordings and playlists as well as guided meditations as well. Right, so that is pretty much it when it comes to strategies, but I would be really keen on hearing a couple of your own strategies as well that you might use. So on that note, there is a couple of resources there, and I might encourage you just to pop onto the poll as well in just 2 minutes, and we'll have a look at the different strategies that you might use. But just before I do that, and just to finish up with the webinar today, I just want to show you a couple of different resources that we have developed with our colleagues over in UCD and TUD to help students through the difficult time that is the exam period as well. So we've set aside a couple of videos and they're available on our YouTube channel called the Occupational Therapy Resources, so you can see that name there as well. I'll pop the link into this chat here as well after the webinar, just if anyone wants to pop onto that. It only takes a couple of minutes just to run through that. Particular video that's on the slide there, and that's the Mind Your Mental Health resource, and that's useful at any time, regardless of whether it's coming up to exams or otherwise. So if you want to have even 5 minutes after this webinar to pop onto that, you're more than welcome to do so. And on that note, we'll just have a really quick look at the poll, and then if anyone has any final questions, then we'll end the webinar today on those questions. So we'll just pop onto the poll first. And we've got the what helps to manage exam stress. We've got support, movies, try networking, constant exams, good thoughts, sorry, going away and watching TV. So there's a couple of different suggestions there as well. And if anyone has any other thoughts on that as well, family is mentioned there again as a support network. Yeah, that's great. So a couple of them obviously that we spoke about today, they haven't been mentioned there on the poll as well, so hopefully you can try to implement a couple of those ideas in terms of how we can independently manage that as well. I think Netflix is always a good one if you want to take your mind off exams and particular subjects and things like that. Try and refrain from going on to YouTube if it's particularly around academics. If you're using for a space for rest and relaxation, try and keep to things that are a little bit more lighter in nature, so you don't have to be kind of stuck in the academic world even during times of rest and relaxation as well. Just I'll give you a final couple of minutes just to input any questions in there if anyone has any questions in the chat, or if you want to turn on your camera and turn on your mic as well, you're free to ask a couple of questions. I'll just stop the recording now just in case anyone wants to ask those in private as well. So thank you again for everyone who attended today, and hopefully you'll have a couple of questions for me.